Yeah, I guess it is recording. Cool. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Odin's Call YouTube channel where we talk about stuff. And got a hard one today, like really hard one. And I want to preface this by giving you a little bit of a backstory. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, actually, my wife and I were really excited. I got a pretty good high paying job that was pseudo important in Denver, Colorado. And, we moved there. And shortly after we moved there, shit hit the fan in a big way. My daughter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and at 13, which is really uncommon, but it was so apparent that it was hard to avoid the diagnosis. And there were a number of things happening around that were not fun. And if you can imagine anything that might be happening around someone, exhibiting mental health issues at the age of 13, and what might come along with that, you're probably right. All of that probably happened. At the same time, my wife was diagnosed with thyroid cancer after twice having pituitary tumors, 12-hour a day job. I was overwhelmed. It was tough. It was hard. It was hard to keep up with. And I didn't have a whole lot of support there. I didn't really know anybody. I moved there away from any kind of valid support system for, to take the job. And, I thought I had it under control and I was pretty excited about it. And I made a couple of friends pretty quick, and one of those friends was a man named Justin. He's a former professional baseball player, one of the coolest people I've ever met. Nice guy, and on more than a few occasions, it was almost like he just kind of empathically understood that I was in a bad spot. You okay? Good? Magic phrase for men. It really is, because what that phrase is not a question. Actually, it's a statement that says, "I recognize that there's something wrong. Do you want to talk about it?" And for the most part, a man's going to reply, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I just, having a hard time, or, whatever, but everything's going to be fine." And when we respond that way, particularly between men, more often than not, your friend's going to go, "Okay, well, let me know if you need anything." And hopefully it's the type of friend that means it. Well, Justin was the type of friend that meant it. And all of this was happening in my life at the time, and it was utter chaos. I can't even begin to describe to you how difficult that entire time frame was and how overwhelming it was. How, kind of mentally and emotionally unwell I was at the time because I was keeping up with, juggling the wife's illness and the kid's illness, and then trying to work a 6, 7 day a week, 12-hour a day, sometimes 14, 15-hour a day job. And there was nothing easy about it. It was frankly more than I could handle. And I was, and barely making ends meet. So financially really having a hard time on top of it because of all the other stuff that was going on. And I remember, one day Justin knew that I was going to be at my office and everybody else would be gone. And he called me one day and he says, "Hey, can I stop by and see you? I wanted to show you." He was a vendor of ours, of the company that I worked for at the time. Just wanted to show you this new thing I got and, see if you want some training on it or something. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, you can come on by. I'm going to be here anyway." And he comes in and, he takes one look at me because, man, I was having a tough day. And he gave me the "you good" question, "You good?" And I don't know, just happened to catch me at the right moment and I melted down. And when I say I was ugly crying, I mean, I was ugly crying. I was in a bad, bad place. And, just, if I'd kind of close my eyes and, to kind of escape, you know, seeing someone seeing me in that state, I guess. And he walked over to me and he just kind of put his arms around me for a second, and I started crying even harder. I needed it. I needed a hug. So yeah, bad spot. And I sobbed into his shoulder like a little baby. And after a minute had gone by, I started to kind of get my shit together, and he pulled away from the hug and he looked at me and he says, "I know you're going through a lot right now, and a lesser man wouldn't be able to handle it. I'm glad you could blow a little bit of that steam off. And you good? And I went, and I was good. I just needed to hit the pressure release valve a little bit. And I'll tell you that leads me to a thing that that is underappreciated about men in general is a lot of people will tell you, men need to be more vulnerable. Men need to let their emotions out. Men need to talk things out. Men need to there's a lot of things apparently that men need to do that nobody else needs to do. And well, let me just tell you this. There was no way on God's green earth that I was ever going to demonstrate that level of emotional need and vulnerability to somebody who was just informed that they were likely to die as a result of thyroid cancer. She's fine now, by the way. Or the mentally ill child who was going through all of her own demons. There was no way I was going to be vulnerable to, everybody I talk to every day. And really what we sometimes just need is a momentary reminder that we're human. But I did not, frankly, have time to deal with the way that I was feeling and help my wife, my daughter, get my job done. I didn't have time. So while everybody will tell you, don't bottle things up, it's unhealthy. Well, no, bottling things up sometimes is necessary because there are things that need to get done before you have time to deal with your own emotions. And that's what men go through more often than women do. In a relationship, especially, we have other things to worry about, and we'll get to our feelings when we have time. And if you're one of those men that just goes through it constantly and you never deal with it, never talk about it, that's a different thing. But you know, no, I was in no way vulnerable to anybody. But when my friend looked at me that day and said, "You good?" I realized, well, no, I'm not. No, I'm not good at all. And I needed the reminder and a little bit of affection, and a little bit of care from somebody that, oh, yeah, there's somebody out here that actually gives a shit. And for me, Justin was that friend. And he did that for me that day. Wrapped his arms around me, let me cry like a baby, and then said, didn't ask me 1,000 questions, didn't tell me why, you know, why all of these things were happening, didn't give me any advice, just said, all right. Because he knew that if I wanted to talk about it, I would. And eventually I did with him. But I remember that day really fondly because had I not had that conversation that day, I don't know how the days and the following days would have gone. I was in a pretty bad spot. And when my daughter spent a few weeks in she spent a few weeks in a behavioral health facility. She was really having a difficult, manic episode. When she got out of there, she had she'd cut her hair and she'd done some silly stuff. My wife with the thyroid cancer was she just had her throat slit basically to have her thyroid removed. And they were both feeling, a little rough. And Justin comes to me and he says, "Hey man, why don't you take your wife and your kid down to my wife's beauty salon? She's just gonna do a full, makeover for him. Sometimes when you've been through all this kind of stuff, just feeling pretty might actually make you feel a little bit better." And I was like, "Man, I appreciate that." And so when she got out, they went down and got this makeover done. And for a little while, it was really helpful. It was cool. And he always thought about things like that, just how can I make your life a little bit easier? And I remember one day after things were finally starting to settle down a little bit with all of the getting the medication figured out for the daughter, and my wife had had her surgery and she was kind of getting better. I was really struggling to come up for air financially. And he came over to the house one night and he said, "Hey, can I get a beer?" And I had one in the refrigerator, and he went in and he opened it up. He's like, "You don't have a whole lot of food in here, dude. You good?" And I'm like, "No, not really. I'll figure something out." I was actually about to go pawn a guitar or something just so that I could, get some food for the house. He reaches in his pocket and he just like hands me $300. And he says, "Man, get some groceries." And I said, You know what, man? I'll figure it out. You don't need to do that, because this is what we do. That's the pride of men. That's one character trait I've had to figure out how to get rid of, or to the best of my ability. He goes, "No, man, I'm happy to do it. I know you've been through an awful lot, bro. So yeah, it's no big deal. I got you." And I'm like, all right, trying again, and I went and got the groceries, and when I got paid the next week, I was pretty much okay at that point. And I tried to give him the money back, and he says, "No, no, absolutely not. I'm glad I could help you." That was my friend, and he was a guy that I would call sometimes, and I would vent to him, and and frankly, he would call me pretty frequently and vent to me because he was going through some shit himself, stuff that he was going through when I was going through things that he recognized. I'm not going to tell him about this because I don't want to burden him with it, but he had some kind of a like a degenerative bone disease or something that was basically shutting him down, and it was going to take an awful lot of surgery and awful lot of medication, and but he was just dealing with it. He was just taking it, and when we eventually moved back to Vegas here 7 or 8 years ago, we kind of stayed in touch. We talked pretty regularly, but as with a lot of my friendships, it'll go, we'll go 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, where people don't, where I don't talk to a friend, and it's not because I don't care about them. It's not because I don't love them. It's because we're busy. They're not calling me. I'm not calling them. But when one of us is digging through our contacts one day and we call each other, it's, "Oh, hey man, how you doing? Good to talk to you, man." And it's like nothing. No time has passed at all. It just resets the clock, and nobody's mad at each other. So, a couple years ago, I realized I haven't talked to Justin in a while, and I sent him a Facebook message, and I realized that I didn't have his phone number. I couldn't find his phone number anywhere. I didn't really sweat it. I figured he'd get to his Facebook messages at some point, and then another 6 months went by, and I sent him a message like, "Hey, man, could you give me a call? Are you good?" And then I waited about a year before I kind of hit him up again. I'm like, I wonder if he's upset with me or something. I hope he's okay. Well, he wasn't okay. His uh his health issue apparently was leading him down a pretty dark path of having to self-medicate, and it got him mixed up with some wrong people. I guess it sounds like he ended up moving to South Carolina, and the end result is he ended up losing his life for 42 grams of DMJ at 2 o'clock in the morning in an apartment parking lot. And I found that out by just googling his name and getting his obituary first, and then a news report for what happened second, and the dates matched up. And I went, "Wow, that sucks. That really sucks." Because as much as he'd been there for me, I would have been there for him if he'd needed something. I would have said, "Hey, man, pack up, get to Vegas, man. I got a room for you," for sure. I definitely would have done that. But we all live our lives. We all make our decisions. Sometimes those decisions aren't great, and sometimes those decisions lead to disastrous results. And I miss my friend. It upsets me. It upsets me because I know that when somebody reads the news report that says, this guy was in a parking lot late at night, and he was selling stuff he shouldn't have been selling, and well, that's what you get. Well, maybe, maybe that is what you get. And I guess if I, as a casual third party, happen to be reading that article, I might feel that way. But I know my friend, and I know him well enough to know that he was a good guy that happened to be happened to have some other issues that led him down a really dark path. And it's a little reminder to me to pay attention to people's realities, and ask questions and be present for people. Because the last time I talked to him, he's like, "Hey man, you want a new job? I got a place you can come work." And I'm like, I'm doing okay in the job I'm at right now, but thanks for looking out for me, and thanks for asking. No problem, man. I love you, bro. And when I see that is the last message, at least my friend told me he loved me before. And apparently that happened shortly after he sent me that message. And so I guess the moral of the story is, you know, not knowing the full circumstances of someone's life, it's real easy to kind of make a judgment about some of the decisions they make. But my friend was 36 years old. He was a friendly guy. He was a loyal friend. He showed up when you needed him. And whatever took him down the path that led him to that parking lot where he lost his life that night, I don't really care. I wish he wouldn't have done it, but it doesn't change my mind about who he was as a person. Because I think sometimes necessity creates some pretty bad situations, some stupid decisions. And I'm not going to judge somebody's entire life on a singular stupid decision like that. You know, um, I should probably clarify if that singular stupid decision, wrecks a child, ends in somebody's life being taken, that's a different conversation. But for what he was there for that night, exchanging some money for, what is a legal plant in several states around the country, I have a hard time holding that against him. And keep your friends close. Make sure you know you care. They know you care. And if they're your friend, make sure you know they care. Otherwise, don't be their friend anymore. But pretty sad. Miss my friend. And it happened a couple of years ago apparently, but I just found out, and it's been on me. It's been under my skin. So I want to thank y'all for listening. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad you came to the channel. Please subscribe. I don't care if you hit the notification bell. I don't want to play that verbal game that every single YouTuber does. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm just no. But I care about you. I do. I care about you more than I care about any politician, by the way. And as I frequently say, and my wife keeps telling me I shouldn't say it, but I mean it. I love you. I respect you. And if I have to, I will protect you. And that's regardless of anything about you other than whether or not you personally are an asshole. I'm glad you came today. And got any thoughts, comments, whatever, drop down in the comments. Let me know. Subscribe.